Welcome to the official YouTube channel for me, the Colin Cowherd Podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button right there so you don't miss any of our football content this postseason. Going to have instant reactions after every big game. Thanks. So it has to be the most embarrassing moment. The Eagles have now been to 8 NFC championships and 4 Super Bowls since the Cowboys have been to 1 conference championship. So Philadelphia is separated as franchise. But the Cowboys announced Brian Schottenheimer as the head coach on a Friday night news dump. Late Friday night. Now, it makes me believe that either Jerry Jones was caught completely flat-footed by Mike McCarthy choosing to leave, or it's some sort of plan to get the #1 pick next year, because Schottenheimer's a nice guy, but he is a bounce around the league, never really like getting opportunities at the highest level. Jags, Seattle, can't really maintain jobs. I said this the other day. Their lack of urgency on Dak's contract crushed them. And their lack of urgency on hiring a coach, it's hard to explain. I don't know how to explain it.
I think it's pretty clear. Jerry, well, the news dump's very telling, right? Jerry runs his franchise for definitely the last 15, 20 years like a television show. He literally was just on one of the more popular ones in the country. You can't tell me. I mean, if Jerry liked the hire, he would have put this thing out in the middle of the night on Sunday or first thing Monday morning so everyone talked about him all week. Friday night, 10 o'clock, not Friday night, 10 o'clock Eastern. I mean, this was late. Half the country might have been asleep. I think he thought, listen, they knew coming into the season that Mike McCarthy was his contract was ending. So we all knew that. We assumed Mike McCarthy was fired. And then Black Monday came and Mike was not fired. We're like, well, clearly. And people have been talking, maybe they're just going to keep him. Jerry thought he could just give him some fake 2-year contract. Like, Mike, where the hell are you going to go? And pretty clear, Mike might have misplaced his hand a little too, because I think he thought he could get the Bears job.
Yeah.
But I think Mike realized kind of maybe halfway or toward the end of that week is he wanted Jason Witten on his staff. Jerry was just going to kind of bend him over like, hey, Jerry, I've made a lot of money in the last 15 years, buddy. I don't need you, and I'm not just going to acquiesce to everything you want. And basically told him to kick rocks. And I think Jerry thought the whole time he could essentially give him like a 2-year contract. Think about this. Jerry just hired Brian Schottenheimer. Jerry's kind of cheap. Like, that's one thing that's pretty telling. Jerry's not these Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel making 12, 13, 14. Mike McCarthy was making $7 million, right? Now, granted, he was hired 5 years ago, but he was on a $7 million. That's one of the lower paid coaches in the league. Would you guess Brian Schottenheimer is making more than $7 million? There's a decent chance that Brian Schottenheimer is the lowest paid coach in the NFL.
I think he is.
We know what Ben Johnson makes. We know Pete Carroll ain't making 7. We know Liam Cohen just got 12 or $13 million. So Jerry's a little cheap. He misplayed his hand. And you'd been saying this, and I've always defended Jerry a little bit. He is really in his Al Davis phase now. Like, that was, sometimes you fire a coach, whatever. It's time. But to go through that week and then eventually break up with Mike McCarthy and end up a week later with Brian Schottenheimer. And once upon a time, Brian Schottenheimer, remember when he was Rex Ryan's OC and they were with Mark Sanchez, he was like 37, 38 years old. He was viewed as a head coach. That was 15 years ago. When's the last time Brian Schottenheimer had a head coaching interview? Has he had one in a decade? Now, that's not the end-all, be-all. But why would you fire Mike McCarthy, who has accomplished stuff, and then hire his offensive coordinator, who's not some valued candidate? It doesn't make any sense.
He didn't even call plays. Yeah, McCarthy, it's not below Jerry to actually make calls dissuading people from hiring Mike McCarthy, because Mike McCarthy suddenly was a hot candidate. Now he's not even getting interviewed, and he's clearly the best candidate on the market. I mean, the Saints, what are the Saints going to do? He'd obviously be the best candidate. I think, and I've said this, if LeBron didn't go to the Lakers are the Cowboys. They're just circling. I mean, LeBron has literally saved the franchise. They were Kobe's last 5 years. I think they have the worst win-loss percentage in the league. I could be wrong, but it was really bad. So it's just, It's just one of those things where it's not a coincidence when people like Andy Reid are successful all the time. It's not a coincidence when certain GMs have good draft classes over and over and over. And I think the Dallas Cowboys, the last couple draft classes have been weak. I mean, they've missed on their first. I mean, they hit on CeeDee Lamb and Micah, but their last two first round picks have been weak. They got worked by Dak Prescott again. They have really fallen to me, John, and I don't take any pleasure in saying this. They've become a little like Cleveland. They're a little like the Jets. They're not as chaotic, but they're really a second tier franchise. Like they're not even they are not remotely close to a top five NFC roster. Forget AFC. They're not they could be the eighth to ninth best roster in the NFC now.
Well, think about this. You just hit on they haven't been in the conference championship game since what, 96. The Eagles just since that Foles, and then the last two, Jalen, have not only been to three, they won them. I mean, the last two, they played Minnesota with Foles, they blew them out. Jalen against the Niners, they knocked out Purdy, blew them out, and tonight they scored 55 points. So they've been to three Super Bowls in the last what, 8 years, 7 years. So you are in a different stratosphere than them. And then Washington sells the team. They get a real coach, a superstar quarterback, and a real GM, and they're going to start lapping you. If I'm a Cowboy fan, thank God the Giants have their own issues, or we would. I, it's that Friday night for a guy that knows. Just, I mean, one thing he's great about is getting people to talk about his team. I mean, that's why
Yeah.
he talks twice a week. No other owner says a peep, Colin. None of them talk at all. It's not like they don't have big. They realize, what's the point? Why am I going to say a word? Most GMs, do you notice how many GMs come on your television show throughout the year? Sparingly here and there, but they let the coach and the players talk during the season, right? It's not their time. Jerry talks twice a week, sometimes three times. And I don't blame anyone for talking to him because he gives you incredible quotes, but that's not a healthy way to operate. It's just not. And I thought it was overblown a little bit when, remember when the story came out, Dak said they have fans walking around the
Yeah.
facility. But once you start losing, you start going, well, where are Jerry's priorities right now? It's like, does he just want to save some money here with Brian Schottenheimer? Did he get into a situation that he never thought he'd be in and then didn't know who to talk to? Of course, Dion wasn't that interested. Dion doesn't answer to anyone in Colorado. Jerry tell him everything to do. That's the other thing. You go work for the Cowboys, like you listen, Woody Johnson, these guys bug you with dumb ideas. Jerry's literally telling you like who to play, when to play
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
like football. Like he thinks Al Davis lost his mind, but at one point in time, Al Davis really knew football. Like, does Jerry really know? Like, is Jerry watching tape? Give me a break. No chance. I don't even blame him, but I also wouldn't be an owner if I'm not watching tape telling you what to do.